If you've been wanting to make your portfolio stand out so that you can land opportunities faster, then you're going to want to stick around because we interviewed Daisy to see how she created this e-learning simulation where we see a bank robbery happen and you have to make decisions just like you're on the job to keep yourself safe. Daisy's going to walk us through the project, tell us some of the tools she used, and how she used this project to land more opportunities. So stick around. Hello, I'm Sabrina Gonzalez, and I'm one of the instructional designers on Devlin's team. And today I'm talking with Daisy, who is one of our boot campers, and she's going to share her great project that she created using some tools that you may not have heard of. So I'm going to hand it over to Daisy and let her introduce herself. So Daisy, tell us a little bit about you and your background before joining the program.
Yeah, so my name is Daisy Orellana, and I was a public school teacher teaching for 7 years before joining the program. So when I was teaching, I got some leadership roles where they were primarily adult facing. So before the boot camp, I did have some experience creating adult learning experiences.
Nice. Yeah. And I'm sure some of that, like any of those like background experiences that you have, you probably now see like the transition to instructional design, how they overlap and all of those things too.
Yes, even with just, teaching, there's a lot of overlap, but especially if you have facilitated professional development before or were like team leads, there are lots of correlations with instructional design and in public education.
Very nice. So then that kind of brings us to like what inspired your project, right? This background experience. So tell us a little bit about this inspiration.
Yeah, it's a bit of a wild story. So when I was 18, I got hired as a bank teller. And before my first day, I had to do a 2-week training program. And right before the first day, we saw the training video for a bank robbery situation. It was not a great video. It was outdated and they had bad actors, and the video left us with more questions than answers. And when we asked the trainers the questions, they just reassured us that a bank robbery is rare. It's not going to happen. Don't really worry about it. So it was my first day. I come in, I'm in the manager's office, and he is giving me my keys and he's giving me a rundown of what was going to happen for the day. And then one of the bank tellers barges into the office and says, "We've just been robbed." And I was in shock. My heart sank. I didn't know what's going on. But as I was sitting there and watching all of the events unfold after it happened, I noticed that people were not doing what the video said they were doing, what we were supposed to do. And I didn't even know what was happening. So as I was doing the flagship course in the program, Devlin asks you to reflect on like past job experiences and past trainings and see how you could probably redo one of those. And I immediately thought of that situation because that was one of the worst job experiences I've ever had. So I knew that if I were to redo that experience, I would want it to be really realistic so that people can understand that this is a possible situation that can happen and be prepared for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it definitely was an experience that stuck with you. If it's been this many years later and it's something that you still thought about and made a way to improve upon it. And now I think your e-learning experience would have a similar impact for people memorize it or remember it because it was actually impactful and useful on the job.
Yeah.
Because they're getting to experience it like they're there. So yeah, you explored some different tools. You used Storyline. But you didn't use a typical animation tool, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But what were your initial thoughts when you were tackling this project?
Yeah, so I was excited to start the project. On Devlin's webpage, you can see all of the amazing portfolios that people had and the projects that they've created. And I was very excited and really wanted to create an awesome project, just like Devlin has on his showcase. And my team, so in the program, we have teams, and my team was starting their flagship projects as well. And they were a little bit ahead of me. And I was very motivated to see the ideas that they were coming up with, When I started, all I knew was that I was going to be using Storyline, and I didn't know how I was going to make the rest of it happen. I was just excited to create something great, and I knew that I was going to because I had a great group of people supporting me through it. Like I had the bootcamp pros and my team. My team was very, very supportive through it all. So I was just very excited to get started.
So yeah, thank you for telling us like about tackling this project. And you use some tools that are a little bit different that people may not have heard about, but we'll get to that in a bit. So let's not keep the people waiting. Why don't you walk us through your project?
Yes. So the training follows a bank teller during their first day of work, and they immediately meet the branch manager who lets them know that a robbery is an on-the-job risk and walks them through the suspect identification chart and to be alert in case they notice any suspicious behaviors. In the first question, the bank teller is confronted with a suspicious person and they need to be able to decide what to do. But because I wanted the learner to experience a robbery, it then leads to a different situation where the bank teller is unable to notify security and they make it to the teller station anyways. And then finally, the last question, they have to write a suspicious activity report. And I thought this was very important because when I went through the training, this wasn't something that was included and I didn't know that this was going to happen. So I wanted to include this because I wanted the learner to know that this is something that is going to happen. They are going to ask you what happened, and it's important to include as much information and as many details as you can remember. When I was speaking with the FBI, I didn't know what to tell them. I didn't know what to say. I didn't remember. I wasn't part of it. I was just in complete shock. So I wanted the learners to be able to explain what happened, especially because this is such a traumatic event that can happen and details may be lost to you. So I wanted them to be ready and prepared to be able to do that.
Yeah, that is definitely an important piece. And especially like you said, it wasn't something that you had been told that would even happen. And so I can imagine like being on the job and just now you're being questioned over this. Yeah, like you said, a traumatic event that you can't really recall all this information because you're still just like in shock. So I think that's great.
And
that practice.
Yeah, and the report is very important too because the police use it for their investigation, and also it needs to be submitted to the office of the comptroller. And if it's not filled out properly or doesn't have enough details, the bank could be fined for it. So it is a very important aspect that during my training, at least, it wasn't included. So
yeah. Yeah, I even think the way you weaved the story was really clever. Because like you said, you had that beginning part where like you do want them to experience a robbery, but maybe they don't right at the beginning because of the answer that they choose, or maybe they do. And then still being able to weave that in later down the line to still give them that full experience. I think that storytelling was really clever.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we've gotten to see like a little peek of that project and all the like great animation you did, you didn't use a common tool like Beyond. Instead, you chose Unreal Engine, which when you had told me about it, I had never heard of it and took a look at it and was like, oh, this is really cool. And then got to hear some of your process of working with it. But why did you go with something like Unreal Engine instead of a common tool like Beyond?
Yes. So I think one of the biggest issues that I found with at least the training that I attended was that it wasn't realistic. So there was, you could obviously tell it was a bad skit. The trainers were telling you not to worry about it because it's not going to happen. And once it's not realistic, the learners tend to tune out of it because they don't think it's applicable to them. So they don't need to learn that material. So before knowing that I wanted to use Unreal Engine, I knew that I wanted the training to have a realistic component to it. And I thought about video production, but immediately ruled it out. I had no money for the equipment, all of the equipment. I didn't know where I would get actors, a set. I wasn't really interested in video production anyways. I knew that people used Beyond, and it is a common tool that people use for animation. but it doesn't have that realistic feel to it. So I knew I did download or get the free subscription or a free trial for it. And I did really like it. And it was very easy to use and it was fun to use, but I knew that it wasn't the right feel for this project. I went on Google and looked up realistic animation tools, and I came across Unreal Engine and found their metahumans. And I was just blown away by how realistic these metahumans were. And I went on YouTube and I saw that people would create like short cinematic trailers and movies and skits using Unreal Engine. And I immediately knew that that was what I wanted to use for my project.
Yeah, and I definitely think it paid off for sure. And like you said, Beyond is a nice tool and it's a common tool, but it wasn't the right feel for this project. Yeah, I think the animation style you chose definitely helps people buy in because it is real. You were there, you were in the bank with them. So yeah, there was a little bit of a learning curve, I'm sure, with learning this brand new animation tool, because it wasn't like Beyond where you can just kind of click and drag things in. So were there any major roadblocks or challenges during development, and how did you handle those?
Yes. So learning Unreal Engine was definitely a big roadblock during development. So I ended my teaching career in May. And I just immediately threw myself into working full-time on my flagship project. So Unreal Engine is also used to create video games. And I have a cousin who is a gamer, and I had asked him about Unreal Engine, if he had ever heard of it or used it before. And he said he had tried playing around making like some worlds on it, but he's like, it's super difficult to use. I don't think you're going to like it. And plus you need this like super heavy duty computer for it. And in my mind, after tackling storyline, I'm like, I can learn any tool. It's going to be fine. It's going to be great. So, because I wasn't working at the time, he allowed me to go over to his place and use his computer while he was at work. So as I was working on the other flagship deliverables, like creating the story, the idea, creating the action map, creating the storyboard and the mood board, I was also playing around with Unreal Engine and looking up YouTube tutorials on like how to create like short cinematic scenes. I found this free YouTube course where like you create a short Star Wars clip. So I was working on that, but as the project gets more complicated and it gets really heavy, you have to problem solve some issues that just happen naturally with it. And I was spending a lot of time trying to problem solve the issues, and I didn't have a lot of time because it wasn't my computer, and I had to give the computer back to my cousin. So I decided to invest once it was time for me to actually start developing the project, I decided to invest in my own computer, and I bought a gaming computer in order to be able to develop the project. And again, as it becomes, your project gets bigger, there's a lot of glitches that end up happening. So for example, it took me like a whole week to create that initial scene of the bank tellers working and creating facial animations and creating all of the extra components in the scene and getting the bank robber to come in. And I was all set and ready to render the video. And then during the rendering process, my main character's head falls into her stomach. And I could not figure out how to reattach her head. And it was, I joined Discord groups in order to get help on trying to problem solve these issues. And after about like 12 hours of looking up YouTube videos, which they all had different solutions to the problem, but nothing was working. And just a lot of experimenting with all of the different features that Unreal Engine has, and just playing around with it. After 12 hours, I was finally able to fix it. And I refused to start over because it took me a whole week to be able to do that, just one scene. So it took me 12 hours to figure it out, but it happened. There was another issue where it took me 2 days to figure out how to get the robber to put the note onto the desk, which you would think that probably wasn't as difficult as it was, but it took me 2 whole days to figure out how to do it. And it was all through finding just groups of people on the internet and Discord, friendly strangers that are willing to like take a look at your project and be able to recommend suggestions on any issues that you're having or any questions that you have.
Nice. That's really reassuring that there, like when you are learning these other tools, that there are communities out there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really funny. The head dropping through the body. I guess that does get rid of the realism you were looking for.
Yes, it does. It really does.
Yeah, I was really impressed with. I love the when the robber comes in, like we have that like perspective change too, and when the bank teller is talking with like the customer, that like zoom where we can see the height of the robber coming in, like all of just those like things that feel like they would be small, just like small camera pans or something. I'm sure we're not small tasks.
That was actually suggestions from people in Discord. So I had shown my project again to these friendly strangers that I met online that ended up becoming friends. And they said, have you tried to change the camera angle? And I said, no, I didn't even know that you could do that. And they showed me how to do it. And I'm like, oh, this is wonderful. This is exactly what I want.
Okay, so any project you work on is usually a very iterative process. So how did feedback from others help refine your project?
Yes. So again, I had help from people on Discord that helped me with specifically the animation component of it. So again, they would suggest things that I didn't even know about. And that helped me really refine my project and give it the look that I was looking for. I want to give a big shout out to Sean, who is one of the former bootcamp pros. He really helped me with like the instructional design component of it. So I had these really, really big ideas for this project. And he kept me grounded and kept me focused on, is this going to solve the business problem? Because all of these ideas are great and it would be really cool to have all of these things, right? But does it meet the goal? Is it the focus? So he really guided me through that. And then you, Sabrina, and my team helped me with really the user experience of it. So when I was developing the project, I initially had speech bubbles coming out of like the mouths of the characters as they were speaking, but it didn't really look right. There were really big speech bubbles, like right in the middle. It would cover up the scene that, was really, again, like realistic and people wanted to see it. And one of my team members said, well, during video games, when they talk, sometimes they have the text on the bottom of the screen. Yeah. And I didn't even think about doing that. I'm not a gamer, so like I didn't really know. So I made the change right during one of our meetings. And I'm like, yes, this looks so much better. This is exactly what I want. It looks more like video game like, which was the type of feel that I was trying to go for as well. And this is exactly the vision that I want. So the feedback with all of the bootcamp pros and the random strangers online was really helpful.
Nice. So you've told us a lot about your project, and it is very impressive and makes a wonderful portfolio piece. But as you shared it, you didn't have a portfolio yet. So what made you to decide to like share it anyway and post it on LinkedIn?
Yes. So as I was working on the project, I received a lot of positive feedback from people in the bootcamp. And they were just very again, just very positive feedback saying like, oh, this is really cool. You put in a lot of work. And I did put a ton of work in this project. And once it was done, I was very, very proud of the project that I created. I shared it on LinkedIn because I thought, it doesn't hurt.
Right.
I don't post on LinkedIn frequently. And I didn't have a portfolio, but I did have a project. So I thought, if a hiring manager sees it, like that's great because I know that hiring managers and recruiters look at your LinkedIn profile. And I thought having something on there is better than having nothing at all. So
Yeah.
I took the risk and I just posted it.
Yeah, I think getting over that hurdle of like posting something is tough, but then once you do, you realize it's like not so bad. And you're right,
Yeah.
like it's not going to hurt anything. And I think too, sharing your work can sometimes be scary also, because just like you have invested so much time in it and you are so proud of it, and it is scary to like put it out there in front of other people.
Yes.
Especially like sharing within like our bootcamp community. It's safe, right? It feels small, it's just our little group, and then sharing it out in like the wider community is scary and vulnerable. But
yeah,
I mean, I got a lot of great reactions for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, how did you take that project and your like skills and position them to help you get noticed?
Yeah. So some of the skills that I really wanted to highlight with my project was one of them was storytelling. So in general, not just in like instructional design, but just in learning in general, learning experiences that have great storytelling are usually the most meaningful and most impactful.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to make sure that my project highlighted my storytelling skills, and the learner was able to follow a story that was going to be meaningful for them. So that is something that I wanted the project to focus on. I also wanted to highlight my instructional design skills and focus on learning through decision making. I wanted the learners to experience like real world consequences and be able to learn from that and have a deeper learning because of it. And finally, I wanted to showcase my technical skills. So I did not use easy programs when developing this. Storyline is very complicated, Unreal Engine, Adobe XD, Adobe Photoshop. So I wanted to highlight that I can use these heavy software and complicated software tools to be able to create a unique learning experiences that that is very immersive and allows for a unique experience.
Yeah, I would definitely say your project does all of those things. Thank you for sharing how you like showed those skills off in your project. Do you have any advice for others who don't have a full portfolio and they still want to showcase their skills?
Yes. So one of the biggest tips that I have for someone who may not have a portfolio yet, but wants to demonstrate their skills is to focus on the quality of the projects that you share versus the quantity. So having one project that, highlights the skills that you want to highlight and you're very, very proud of that project is going to be more meaningful than having like 10 projects all showcasing all various different things. I would also suggest that people build their network on LinkedIn. Again, I was able to connect with people from the boot camp on LinkedIn, and I also attended other networking ID events where I was connecting with people and just building my LinkedIn. And that really helped because I grew my network, I had more visibility on my post. And as people interacted with it, it was exposed to a larger audience. So if you post on LinkedIn, if you're posting quality content on LinkedIn that demonstrates your skill, your LinkedIn profile can be your portfolio.
You said that you don't really post on LinkedIn. So how did you go about writing the post for this project?
Yes, so I really needed to get over the hurdle of just posting it. So part of the flagship course in the program is having a write up for your portfolio. So I completed the write up and I got feedback on it. And once it was ready to go, I decided that I was going to take all of that information, take all of the important pieces that I wanted for it. I put them into Chat GPT and said, write a LinkedIn post for it. And so I did, and I posted it, and that was that.
Very nice. Yeah. Finding the way to, yeah, especially like finding the way to word how you want to post things is difficult for sure. And I think it does get a little more difficult too when you have poured so much into a project, because you're like,
Yeah.
you put that pressure on yourself. I think sometimes like this post has to be perfect. Like I have to do my work justice. But really, it just turns out people are really excited to see what other people are working on. So you post, and then were you surprised by like the responses, and like what kind of responses did you get?
Yeah, so I was completely shocked by all the positive feedback that I got on LinkedIn. So, as I mentioned, I don't really post on LinkedIn. And before that post, that I received like 4 likes on the one before that. So I wasn't expecting anything major. I was expecting just like a few likes, a few comments, but I ended up posting it probably late at night, somewhere around there, right before going to bed. And I woke up and there was like over 100 likes on it, and people were commenting on it. And I had so many connections and messages and profile views. I was just taken aback by how the positive feedback that I got from it. And just as the days continued, like I continued to get likes and comments, all positive, and a lot of connection requests and profile views. So yeah, I was really surprised by it.
Some of your responses you got, or not some, all of the responses you got were all very positive. Lots of connection requests and portfolio, or not portfolio, profile views. Did anything else come of this post?
I ended up getting several interviews after posting my project on LinkedIn. And 2 of the hiring managers that I interviewed with said, "Oh, we saw your project on LinkedIn and just wanted to know more about the process." And I think doing the write up before posting really helped me solidify really helped me effectively communicate the process that I took in developing the project and be able to justify the design choices that I took. So when it came to the interviews, I was prepared to talk about the project and to talk about my process and just elaborate more on that, which is what the hiring managers wanted to know about. So yeah, that I was really shocked when they said they saw it on LinkedIn, because again, I don't post on LinkedIn. So I was really just over the moon knowing that they were able to interact with my project online and be able to see it and be wanting to learn more about it. So
Yeah, you've had some experiences in your past roles that like related to instructional design, but looking back as you've gone through this whole process, is there any advice you'd give to someone who is trying to land an opportunity in instructional design?
Yeah, I actually have 2 pieces of advice for people that are looking to get into instructional design. The first one is, if you commit, you will be able to do it. You may face a lot of failures along the way. You may have a lot of rejection after interviews. Storyline is a pain in the butt to learn, and it's going to be difficult. But if you really commit to it, and if you're very dedicated to it, and you have made the decision that yes, you want to be an instructional designer, just commit to it, and don't give up. Just keep going. It will happen. There were many times where I wanted to give up in the interview process, in the development process, even just when I got started with Storyline and, running into issues within Storyline. It is hard, but, if you are fully committed to it, it is possible. The second piece of advice is network. Very, very important is networking. So I had the support of the program. My boot camp team was there to support me the entire time. You, Sabrina, and Sean, and the boot camp team was able to help me when I got stuck and help me through the process. Um, the strangers on Discord for Unreal Engine were able to help me. So getting yourself out there and building your network, attending webinars, attending ID networking events. This is something that I would like to try out. So just
Yeah, I think those are all really, really great tips. Yeah, it can feel like a tough process. Like you are switching an entire career. It's a whole
yes.
new world. But yeah, I appreciate you telling people to stick with it because yeah, it can be tough and we're always going to be like our own worst critics, I think,
Yes.
and think the worst of things. But that is also where a nice network comes in handy too, because they can see what you're doing and they can help lift you up and really see the work that you've done. Yeah, thank you so much for letting us take a look at your project and telling us a little bit more behind the scenes and sharing those nice how you got noticed on LinkedIn. So, like I said, I think it is that first initial just post it is
just
tough.
Yeah, just do it. It doesn't hurt. So
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Daisy. Appreciate you sharing all this wonderful information with us.
Thank you.
I want to thank Daisy one more time for taking the time to share all of these wonderful tips she shared with us, from her project, learning new tools, finding supportive communities, and the power of networking. So thank you, Daisy. If you'd like to experience Daisy's bank heist project for yourself, then go ahead and connect with her on LinkedIn, Daisy Orellana, and you can check it out for yourself. I worked pretty closely with Daisy on the end of her project, and she worked closely with the rest of the Devlin Peck team throughout her bootcamp experience. If you'd like to work with us and get that individualized one-on-one feedback to create standout portfolio projects, then consider joining us in the ID Portfolio Bootcamp. We're currently in the middle of a launch, and applications will close on April 1st. So I hope to see you there, and I'll see you around. Bye.